Isn't it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
For weeks, the hosts on The View laughed off Karoline Leavitt's massive $800 million lawsuit like it was nothing serious. They joked about it on air, brushed it aside, and treated it like a publicity stunt from the right. They didn't seem worried at all. In fact, they acted like it was beneath them. But now things have changed. The same women who once mocked the case are suddenly staying quiet. According to insiders, some of them are even asking Karoline to let it go before the situation gets worse. At first, the mood behind the scenes was confident, almost arrogant. They didn't think the lawsuit would go anywhere. Joy Behar, always quick with a snarky comment, rolled her eyes and called it another conservative crying for attention. But it's clearly not over.
Victim.
For me, and sort of lived lives of dreams deferred and poured everything in me and just my life, how I transitioned from college. I went to college when I was 16, high school when I was 12, the struggle of that and my career as a federal prosecutor, and then how I found my way.
For weeks, the hosts of The View didn't take Karoline Leavitt's massive $800 million lawsuit seriously. They laughed about it on air, acted like it was some kind of joke, and treated it as nothing more than a publicity stunt from a conservative voice trying to stir up drama. Joy Behar rolled her eyes. Whoopi Goldberg brushed it off, saying confidently, "Please, we've dealt with worse. This will be forgotten in a week." And Sunny Hostin, the show's go-to legal expert, sat there with full confidence and said, the case had no legs to stand on. She claimed it would be thrown out immediately. No question, no worry. And for a moment, it looked like they were right. Mainstream news outlets like CNN and MSNBC quickly echoed their attitude. Analysts labeled the case as frivolous, baseless, and even called it an attack on free speech. The View's panel kept laughing, secure in their bubble. But while they were relaxed and cracking jokes, something else was happening behind the scenes, something much more serious than they expected. Rumors began to circulate among legal insiders. Lawyers and media executives started to whisper that Karoline's case might actually be legit. Her team wasn't bluffing. They were building something solid. Insiders revealed the lawsuit included sealed testimony, confidential documents, and accusations that could really shake things up at ABC. Suddenly, the mood began to shift. The same hosts who had been cracking jokes days earlier were now being much more careful with their words. On screen, you could see it. Less sarcasm, more caution. Even Whoopi, known for being outspoken, stopped mentioning the lawsuit at all. And the big question started floating around the industry. Could this lawsuit actually damage the empire that The View helped build? An $800 million defamation case isn't just a bad headline. That's a number big enough to scare a giant network like ABC. Behind the fake smiles and carefully applied makeup, the mood at the network was anything but calm. ABC's legal team wasn't laughing. They saw something the hosts didn't. This wasn't just about opinions being challenged. It was about real damage, backed up by real evidence. Sources say ABC's lawyers immediately kicked into high gear. They began reviewing old emails, episode transcripts, internal notes, and everything in between. They knew if this lawsuit made it to court, it could reveal private conversations, executive decisions, and off-camera moments that were never meant to go public. And if that happened, it wouldn't just damage The View. It could stain ABC's reputation for years. The network released a short, dry statement saying they take all legal matters seriously and would handle it professionally. But behind that bland message, chaos was brewing. The lawsuit wasn't just claiming defamation. It accused the show of repeatedly and intentionally targeting Karoline Leavitt, using their platform to discredit and ruin her. Some ABC executives wanted to fight back. They said the show had done nothing wrong and should defend itself in court. Others, though, were terrified. They worried a courtroom battle would force them to hand over private emails, recordings, and behind-the-scenes footage, things that could embarrass everyone involved or worse, expose shady behavior. And the most shocking part? The hosts had no idea how serious it had become. They were still cracking jokes, still brushing it off like it would disappear on its own. But word eventually spread. The women of The View started to hear whispers that ABC might be thinking about settling the lawsuit quietly. When that news reached the dressing rooms, everything changed. Whoopi Goldberg reportedly lost her temper in a private meeting. After weeks of shrugging off the case, she was furious that her own network might give in. "Are you kidding me? We're actually taking her seriously now?" she shouted, slamming her hand on the table. For Whoopi, this wasn't just business, it was personal. She'd survived plenty of controversies over the years, but this time, her own company was backing away instead of standing with her. Joy Behar was just as upset. She stormed into her dressing room, slammed her makeup bag down, and shouted, "We built this show. We made this network millions." Her anger wasn't just about the lawsuit. It was about feeling abandoned. She didn't think someone like Karoline Leavitt should have that kind of power. Even Sunny Hostin, usually calm and collected, wasn't smiling anymore. As a former prosecutor, she'd read through the legal documents and internal emails. She pulled aside a producer and said plainly, "If this goes to trial, every one of us is getting dragged in. There's no hiding." She knew this wasn't just a legal problem. It was a public relations nightmare. Everything they'd said on or off camera could be brought up in court. Old clips, backstage chats, even private messages could be subpoenaed, and it scared her. The cast started falling apart under the pressure. Trust was gone. Everyone was pointing fingers. And all the while, ABC still hadn't decided what to do. Some leaders wanted to buy time and keep their options open. Others pushed for a quick deal before more dirt came out. Meanwhile, the show's hosts were spiraling. Then something happened that nobody expected. On a live episode, the energy was completely different. The cocky attitudes were gone. So were the jokes and eye rolls. Instead, there was silence, nervous smiles, and awkward pauses. Whoopi opened the segment with a deep sigh. Her voice, usually sharp, was soft and uncertain. "Look," she said, "I think we all need to step back. There's been a lot of unnecessary hostility, and frankly, this isn't good for anyone." It sounded like a peace offering, one wrapped in regret. Joy Behar, who had once mocked Karoline in the lawsuit without hesitation, followed with something totally unexpected. She nervously adjusted her papers and said, "I don't know why this has to go so far. Can't we just sit down and talk this out?" The viewers could feel the shift. It wasn't confidence, it was desperation. The same people who had once laughed this case off were now trying to calm the storm they helped create. But it might be too late. The damage was done. The lawsuit was moving forward. And if it reaches court, it might take more than apologies and awkward backpedaling to stop it. Because what started as a joke had turned into a serious threat, and the women of The View are finally realizing just how real it is.
Folks, they really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was picked for the role.
For weeks, The View hosts had laughed off Karoline Leavitt's $800 million lawsuit like it was some kind of joke. They rolled their eyes, cracked jokes on live TV, and brushed her off like she was nothing more than a nuisance. Joy Behar led the charge, calling it ridiculous. Whoopi Goldberg made sarcastic comments while Sunny Hostin, who used to be a prosecutor, boldly claimed that the lawsuit was baseless and wouldn't go anywhere. But now, less than a month later, everything had changed. Suddenly, Joy was no longer laughing. On air, she appeared nervous and unsure. "Maybe we should sit down and talk," she said, almost pleading. It was a shocking change for anyone who had watched her mock Karoline just weeks earlier. It felt like a slap in the face to loyal viewers who remembered her strong and sarcastic stance. And she wasn't alone. Sunny Hostin looked the most shaken, the same woman who had once confidently declared the lawsuit dead on arrival, now sat forward in her chair speaking in a much softer tone. Her voice, once so certain, was now careful and almost apologetic. "Karoline, if you're watching," Sunny said, pausing after every few words, "I believe there's still a way to solve this, without dragging it into court. Maybe it's time to find some common ground." Behind the cameras, producers held their breath. This wasn't just another episode of The View. This was damage control, live and in real time. One by one, the hosts started trying to rewrite the story. But the audience could tell something wasn't right. The tone was completely different, and viewers weren't buying it. This wasn't just a change of heart, it was one of the most dramatic public backtracks seen on television in years. The same women who had once mocked Karoline were now practically begging her to let it go. But don't be fooled, this wasn't about kindness or peace, this was about survival. According to behind-the-scenes reports, ABC's legal department had already warned the hosts and producers, if Karoline moved forward with her lawsuit, things could get ugly, fast. Every private email, every behind-the-scenes comment, every shady decision made during production could be dragged into the light. If that happened, The View's reputation, and even ABC's as a network, could be destroyed. So what the hosts said on air wasn't about compassion. It was about protecting careers. It was about stopping a massive scandal before it got worse. The View wasn't asking for forgiveness. They were trying to stop the bleeding. But the internet wasn't fooled. As soon as the episode aired, social media exploded. People who had watched the hosts laugh at Karoline just days before now saw them practically pleading. The reaction was instant and brutal. Comment sections turned into battle zones. Viewers flooded Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok with memes and scathing comments. One viral comment on The View's Instagram summed it up perfectly. If you weren't guilty, you wouldn't be begging. Others called the segment fake, desperate, and the worst attempt at damage control ever seen on daytime TV. Memes quickly flooded the internet. One meme showed Whoopi Goldberg in a split screen, on one side laughing and smug, on the other nervous and defeated during her on-air plea. Another showed Joy Behar's panicked expression, paired with a sarcastic caption, "Built the show, built the problem." Right-wing media didn't waste any time. Fox News ran multiple segments picking apart the collapse of The View's so-called tough girl act. The Daily Wire released a piece calling the hosts hypocrites, saying their sudden change of tone was nothing but a calculated attempt to escape accountability. Even independent creators on YouTube and TikTok jumped in, racking up millions of views analyzing every awkward moment. Video titles like "Whoopi Cracks Under Pressure" and Joy Behar's "Backpedal of the Century" flooded feeds. The damage was done. Instead of earning sympathy, the hosts had given their critics exactly what they wanted, proof that the pressure was getting to them. Even YouTube commentary channels began picking apart every clip, slowing them down, and analyzing every breath, every facial expression, and every carefully chosen word. Most viewers agreed. It didn't look like real remorse. It looked like panic. By the time the episode finished airing, the internet had made up its mind. The shift wasn't genuine. It was a last-ditch effort to stop a disaster from getting worse. But it was too late. Karoline wasn't backing down. Behind closed doors at ABC, things were falling apart. Top executives realized this wasn't just bad press, it was a full-blown crisis. Ratings were falling fast. Some sponsors were already pulling their ads. Others were quietly preparing to cut ties. Internally, panic had taken over. Crisis meetings were happening every night. Lawyers were reviewing every second of past footage, every episode transcript, and even internal emails. The fear was clear. If Karoline took this case all the way to court, the truth could be exposed, and it wouldn't just hurt The View. It could destroy ABC's credibility altogether. Private messages, confidential production notes, and off-camera conversations could all be revealed. And if they were, they might show a completely different side of the show, one the public wasn't supposed to see. That's what had everyone terrified, even as the hosts smiled for the cameras, pretending. Everything was fine. The real story was much darker. The once powerful panel that millions of viewers had trusted for years now looked weak, vulnerable, and very exposed. And Karoline? She wasn't going anywhere. Every time the hosts tried to soften their tone or shift the blame, she held firm. If anything, their pleas only made her look stronger, and them more guilty. The power had completely shifted. Now, The View is facing what might be its biggest scandal ever. And this story is far from over. Will ABC manage to save the show before it's too late? Or will Karoline Leavitt actually bring down one of the most iconic talk shows in daytime television? We'll have to wait and see. But one thing is clear, the days of The View brushing off critics and laughing away controversy are over. The storm has arrived and the world is watching.